Hey, welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. I'm your host, Coach Tripp, here on the episode of Four Wheel Drive every Wednesday. Billy and I, and usually Blaze Winter, who is that away. He's busy, so he usually joins us. And, of course, the other two guys in the four-wheel drive. Right above me, there's J.D. Kimmel, and there's Timmy Green right above me, first-round pick of the Atlanta Falcons. And now who has ALS and runs a podcast, Nothing Left Unsaid, a great podcast. So, wherever you get your podcast, check that out. This episode is brought to you by Hill Kelly Dodge. Go by and see Miles Bentley and get you Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Chrysler. I got a Jeep from them. Siler Agency, Ronnie's Car Wash, and Pensacola Glass. All right, Billy. Thanks for joining the show, brother. It's good to see you.
Nice seeing you, man. Anytime, you know that.
All right, we're gonna tackle a couple subjects today, man. What to make of arguments on the sidelines? I wrote this a few years ago, I think 2021, when Tom Brady was with the Bucs. People make too big of a deal when they see arguments on the sidelines. Sometimes those in authority are wrong. Just because they are your coworker, subordinate, or boss doesn't mean you shouldn't stand up for what you believe in. That's what Tom Brady was doing as a Buck in 2021 on the sidelines of that game. The passion is a big part of his success. I think Tony Gonzalez mentioned it on the air, and it was a non-issue. He's an emotional player. Forget it. That is exactly how I view it, Gonzalez says. It wasn't disrespectful, and I have to concur with him. Now, you guys got to remember, quote, don't ever do or coach something that you don't know, and never ignore the things that you do know. You know, I don't know who first come up with this phrase, but it is simple, but yet complex. Think about this for a minute. Don't ever, and you can interject any adjective, i.e. coach, teacher, criticize, litigate, something you don't know. Don't ever teach or coach something you don't know. And some are obvious. For example, most people aren't going to go try to fly an airplane. But some aren't so obvious. For instance, a fan criticizing Saban on his coaching discipline, or going against the doctor's orders, or those of you with children, have you ever heard this from a friend or a relative that does not have the blessing of children? Well, I think you should do this, Johnny or Jane, blah, 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 blah. Well, we've all been guilty of doing something we know very little or nothing about. Or as a DB coach saying, let's run the ball on offense. I have no business putting my 2 cents in on offense. Sometimes we're all guilty of not knowing what we're talking about. But let's look at the second phrase. Never ignore the things you do know. Some people call this stubborn. Stubborn's really not the word. Maybe only because it seems to have a negative connotation. I would use the word uncompromising. In high school, I played for uncompromising coach George O'Leary. In college, I played for uncompromising coach in Paul Bear. Uncompromising. We won big, and I learned big. I asked Mel Moore, God rest his soul, who had 11 national championship rings, more than any other human on the earth. I asked him one time, what was the most common characteristic between Coach Bryant and Coach Saban? And he told me neither one compromised. So listen to that again. Ignore the things you do know. Let's think about it. This seems simple, but not so fast. Sometimes if you have a conviction backed up by experience, knowledge, and fact, you should never back down. Okay? Conviction backed by experience, knowledge, and fact, you should never back down. You should never be a yes man. As a matter of fact, all the great leaders, military leaders, presidents, great coaches, they did not want yes man as their subordinates. Coach Bryant didn't want them as assistant coaches. And in 22 years of playing football, I've seen probably, I guess they made it around 8 head coaches. I've seen dozens, if not hundreds, of assistant coaches. Some compromised, some didn't. And it's funny how the uncompromising coaches won, the compromising coaches did not. Okay? So let's look, let's dissect that a little, Billy. I got, 90% of the coaches, assistant coaches, are the one working with the kids. Okay, and I've gotten in arguments with assistants and head coaches on the sideline, but only after they challenged something that I knew and I refused to compromise. It's not popular, it's not pretty, and it's never personal. It's principle. We can agree to disagree on the decision, the issues usually made by the authoritative figure. If it means enough to both, parting of ways is the best solution. This is why assistant coaches in high school and college and coaches have coached at 3 to 15 different places. Billy, I've seen it. Even good coaches move around, but a lot of coaches have coached at 5, 7, 8, 10 places. Most of them, most NFL coaches have that on their resume.
Yeah. That's a lot of it's got to do with his records too. I mean, winning is paramount in almost every level, and when you add the intensity to what's going on in the game, there has to be arguments at some point. Now with all the media and with everything, the cameras and the way everything is scrutinized now, you see more of it. But it was no different back 20, 30, 40 years ago. There was still those disagreements. And then you got to understand, and a great point you made, a great point is it's not personal. It's in the heat of the moment, and we've all been involved in it. And I've had, and I was under, Coach O'Leary for 7 years, and it was a long time, and it was not a give and take. As you remember in high school, it continued through college. It was even worse then. There was one way, and it was his way, and our outlet on the field was the arguments between ourselves as the four of us and the linebackers and the defensive backs. Because back when we played, our front was exceptional. All four of us went in the draft. All four of us played at the next level. And as you trickled back to the linebackers and defensive backs, the level dropped a little bit. So we did our job up front, and maybe somebody missed an assignment behind us, which cost us either a first down or a touchdown, which led to an argument on the sideline. And again, and we go back to a short memory, and I can't tell you how many times the four of us, those guys behind you, had arguments between us on the sideline, which didn't last more than 15, 20 seconds, and it was over. And, you went on to do your job. But
Right. Yeah, there's uncompromising coaches. And you played for George O'Leary longer than any human on earth. 7 years. Nobody played longer for him than you did. So you knew better than anybody how uncompromising that he was. And
Paulie, the thing is, playing under him, it taught us excellence. It taught us to do everything perfectly. I mean, and we expected that from the other 7 guys. And a lot of times, and again, you talked about assistant coaches. They were getting coached by different coaches. They weren't coached by our defensive line coach. So maybe they let a few things go. And when we talk about arguments, we talk about, somebody not filling the gap behind you, maybe a DB not in the right coverage, maybe, little things that maybe led to 4 or 5 yards, maybe a first down. I'm not talking about touchdowns every time. Yeah. I'm talking about perfection. And that's what Coach demanded. And we turned around and demanded that of everyone else on that unit.
That's what I wanted. That's what I want to get to, Billy. That's the point of one of your stories, I think. Did he get frustrated with the compromising ways of other assistant coaches? Did the other assistant coaches not do their job, I think, to his standard? Did that frustrate him? And tell the story about he got so frustrated he come down from the skybox, come down. Tell that story, man.
And again, I will never speak for Coach O'Leary, and I only can talk about what I see. And, there was definitely some friction between some of the coaches, the head coach, and some of the other coaches between Coach O. And Coach O, as you well know, is a perfectionist.
Right.
I mean, everything there's a guy that's in the office at 4:35 in the morning, didn't leave till midnight, 1 o'clock, and at a lot of times stayed all night in his office. And I'm talking about an 8x10 office. That's the size offices these guys had back then. Now, going back to the Colgate game. Now these two stories intertwine. Now, back when Syracuse used to play Colgate back in the early years, it was a big rivalry. I mean, it was a huge rivalry. Mm-hmm. As the two teams started to progress, Colgate dropped off a little bit. They lost the rivalry, so it went away for I don't know the exact amount of years, but when Coach McPherson came into Syracuse, and the year after, the four of us were in our junior year, maybe our senior year, I forget which, but he wanted to bring the rivalry back. Now, I believe it was for two reasons. I mean, he wanted to show something to the community, and also pitch Colgate, well, we're going to pay you a certain amount of money to come to the Dome, even though the two teams were in different levels, Paulie. You got to remember, Colgate was playing at a different level. Now, Mac, and I don't know if you knew Coach McPherson as well, but Coach Mac was almost could talk you out of your socks and shoes and everything. He was a great communicator and could convince you that the water would hold you up if you walked across the lake. He was that good, and he convinced the Colgate coach to play us in the Dome back in it was the mid '80s, and I mean, they obviously both teams were so far apart. I think, and I don't know for sure, but I think he instructed the coaches, the assistant coaches, hey, let's lay down a little bit and let these guys have a game here. Now, when you talk to a guy like Coach O'Leary about that subject, obviously he's going to do the opposite. Now, that week of practice was a hell week, and he wanted to make sure that we did everything as mean and nasty as we could. And fast forward into the second, by the beginning of the second half, they lost, I think, 7 or 8 players off their first starting two teams, including two quarterbacks were put out. They had a receiver at quarterback. I remember their head coach yelling across the sideline, What's going on here? I think we had a running clock in the last quarter, and it ended up being, I don't know, some astronomical number. But it after that caused a rift between, I think, and I don't know for sure, but between the coaching, especially Coach O and Coach McPherson. And after that game, he was put up in the press box. Coach O'Leary was instructed to go in the press box, which
he was I bet he was livid with that.
It was like sentencing him to 30 years in prison. Okay, so the whole rest of the next week was hell, and under his breath he kept because he wanted to be right there. So when we came off the field.
He had to talk to you. Yeah, absolutely. I would never go to the press box either because I needed to be on the sidelines to talk to him. Yeah, I bet he was livid.
Whether it was good or bad, he'd straight. There was always something that could be improved on. Didn't matter if we were 3 and out or not. There was some problem, and he'd be standing right there, turn around, the four of us be sitting together. And he'd make some remark or whatever it was, but he wanted to be right there. But so the game comes up, and we're sitting on the sideline. I'm sitting next to Jamie. And of course, Blaze is doing something. Timmy's wandering around. I'm sitting next to Jamie. Jamie's laughing, going, "God, this is like being at a this is unbelievable." He goes, and I'm
Not getting yelled at every time you come off the field. You're not getting yelled at.
Right, and no lie, he's sitting next to me, and I'm staring across the field up to the press box. Right, so I'm looking. I can always see Coach O's head. Like up there.
That white hair. The white hair.
Right, no hat on. No. Yeah. So I happen to look up, and Jamie's laughing next to me, and he's talking. We're off the field, and I'm looking at him, going, "Geez, I don't see him. I don't see him." Sure as shit, right? I turn to the left, out of the tunnel. He comes out. His face is brighter than I've ever seen it before, and he comes right through. The game is going on. He comes right through the end zone. Right.
Oh my God.
Comes to the sideline right to us. And of course, I don't want to go through exactly what's said, because there was
a lot of four-letter words.
I think he walked up to Coach Mack and made his point clear. He was never up in the press box again.
Oh, that story is outstanding, man.
Oh,
holy cow. You guys had like one half. You probably didn't even get through half a game. And you guys, him up in the press box, and he comes down.
The best part, we talked about this before. The four of us, and I mean, this is shocking to you, especially we've known each other since middle school, high school, is I was the glue between the other three. Now, how is that even possible? I mean,
I don't know. But people that don't know, Timmy was just a brilliant bookworm, studious, 5A, just a Rhodes Scholar. Okay, could have gone over, and he was brilliant. So he was a thinker, a hardworking thinker. Jamie was just off the chains wild. Blaze was an emotional, roller coaster, and you had to keep him. You had to keep him on, and you were the glue. You had to keep everybody together, and that's how it. Sometimes that's how it is, Billy. I remember some of the secondaries. There's 4 guys on the D line. There's 4 guys in the secondary. Usually there was one guy that was holding all the other clowns together in this circus and keeping everybody on the same page. And you probably had to use different techniques for Jamie as opposed to Blaze, and then talking to Timmy.
Right. But you get back to the arguments. We talk about we talk about the subject of today's show. As Coach O'Leary's coming out of the tunnel, I'm hustling to try to get Jamie, Blaze, and Timmy back to the bench together before he gets to the bench. And of course, I didn't make it. And of course, the argument started on the sideline between him and Matt, and then of course he laid into us four like unmercilessly. And he started out with make sure you clear your schedule on Sunday, because you will run till you puke, and then we'll start over. So
wow. So he's arguing with the coaches, with the players. How about any assistant coaches? I bet he didn't get along with like if a DB blew a coverage, and you guys were like pressuring the quarterback doing your job, and like I bet he got frustrated with some of the linebacker coaches or DB coaches he had to deal with.
Paulie, the funny thing was when you fast forward a few years later, you fast forward 8 or 10 years after his term at Syracuse, he took 2 or 3 guys off of the Syracuse staff and had them at UCF. And I think those guys understood after 2 or 3 years when he was at Syracuse he was more or less a defensive coordinator, even though he didn't have that title. And he didn't need to really say much to get results from everybody. And in the the breakdowns we had in our secondary were mostly because of talent. It wasn't because of effort,
effort or smarts. Yeah. Well, hey, I know he was uncompromising as assistant coach, uncompromising as a head coach. And, that's I just saw the movie or the documentary, Nothing But a Winner, about Coach Brian and Saban. It is outstanding. For those of y'all that didn't get to see it, it's going to be streaming, I think, pretty soon. It was on theaters shortly, but man, they captured Coach Brian better than any other movie that's ever tried. Junction Boys didn't capture him. That movie, The Bear, never captured him. But this is a great documentary that Bobby Humphrey's kids helped produce. And when it comes out, you got to watch it. All right, let's touch on real quick. We talk about arguments on the sidelines. You got to have a quick memory. Nothing's personal. Just forget about it. That's why passion is involved, because they care enough to actually stand up for what they believe in. All right, so we got all that. Let's talk real for 5 minutes, Billy, on the subject of there's three levels of professional sports. And I remember Ben Bates, who's like the Crash Davis of mini tours for years, lived here in Pensacola. And I went out golfing with him, and he told me, Trip, there's three levels. There's your elite guys that can win every single week, that are winning majors, and just your top 10, 15 guys. And then there's your guys that are good pros. They'll win one or two tournaments in their career, but they make a lot of cuts. They're just steady Eddie that been on tour for years. And then here's your third group that are playing the mini tours and trying to hang on to their tour card every single year. And so there's definitely three levels in golf. I think football is the same way, Billy. You got your Hall of Famers, your guys that have played 10, 15, 20 years that were just leaders of the team. And then you got your guys that played, 4, 5, 6 years, pretty good players that started for a couple of years or so. And then you had your players like us that struggled to make rosters, got cut a few times. We're just, borderline pros. And I think those are the three levels. You can find it in baseball, basketball with the G League. And I just think it's interesting how that dynamic is. As good as the pros are, there's three different levels all in the pros too.
Yeah, it's true, because you look at golf. We could take football. Every sport has it, but you look at, and I look at this live thing at golf, and when they come up with live, the Saudi tour, and how that made a lot of those guys that were trying to fight for their card every year and keep their families fed, because if you don't make a cut, you don't get paid. And a lot of them guys went to live, and people don't understand. And I'm in the middle as far as whether I would take the money or whether I would not. But if you got 2 or 3 kids and you're guaranteed a certain amount of money, and you're one of those struggling guys that are in group 3 you talked about, where you're trying to fight your way through, that guaranteed money is going to help you at least feed your family. But
set you for generations, set you for wealth for generations.
Right. When you look at football, you look at, especially we're talking football today, but those Hall of Famers, those all pro guys, that's a very, very small percentage. I mean, a very small percentage.
Really small, 0.0001.
You look at the overall percentage of all NFL football players, the biggest percentage is in that group 3 category. That's where the biggest percentage is.
Right. The higher you go, the higher you go, the smaller circle it is.
Everybody's fighting. 90% of these guys are fighting every year to keep a spot. And you know it, I know it, we've been there, so.
Yeah, the elite of the elite. Maybe that'll be a subject next week. Let's talk about the elite athletes. Maybe we'll pick our top 5 athletes of all time and state our case. That sounds like yeah.
That might be right.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
The other thing people got to understand, Paulie, is when you talk about going into the NFL. I remember going into Dallas, and I'm looking at 900 guys brought into camp. And when you take those positions, there's 40 guys, 45 guys in each position, and you look at paper on them guys, every one of them is almost identical. So how are those guys becoming elite? How are those guys becoming Group 3? A lot of it is in the right place, the right time, getting the right chances at the right time.
Right. A lot of it's timing and intangibles. Maybe we'll talk about that. Timing and intangibles. Because I had good timing at times and I had bad timing at times. And that's a great point. Maybe we'll talk about that next week.
Exactly. You think about when you went into the NFL, when I went into the NFL, you sit there and you wonder, I'm playing and doing all my numbers as good as that guy that started. You're running a 4.4. He runs a 4.4. You bench 365. He bench 365. Your vert's a 38. His vert's a 37 or 38.
Right.
Why is he getting the option over me? Okay,
that's right. That's always been fascinating. Why guys made it right when that level's so close. Why guys made it and why the guys did it. That's always been fascinating to me.
I don't want to get off the subject, but one great example, and rest his soul, was Ray Seals. Great example of that. There's a guy that had, a lot of things go his way, to where he played on Super Bowl teams, and they picked him up from the Syracuse Express. For Christ's sake, I mean.
Absolutely.
It's all about being in the right place, the right time, I believe. I don't think it's so much who you are, but where you are.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. All right, Billy, great show. Thanks for contributing your expertise, and have a great week. I want to mention to everybody that they don't want to miss Saturday's show. My teammate and roommate, I roomed for a whole year with Dan Rashovich, linebacker in Canada. He played 16 years in Canada, second most games in CFL history on defense. Yeah. Well, we'll talk with him Saturday. Everybody, you don't want to miss Raz. I called him Raz.
Listen, Paulie, 16 years doing anything.
Yeah.
Take away football, but anything is phenomenal.
He's a linebacker. Oh, Billy, he's a great story. Hey, he was my best friend on the Toronto Argonauts that year. We had a pretty good year. We had J.C. Watts, Conridge Holloway as our quarterbacks. Yeah,
nice.
Like that. Yeah.
Give him my best.
Stay tuned. Yeah, stay tuned Saturday for that show. Billy, have a great sports week, brother. Love you. I'll see you soon.
Man.
Okay, so long. Hey, man, thanks for watching the show. Stay tuned for these great messages. Without our sponsors, just wouldn't be possible. We have some more advertisers coming up next month. We're going to talk about those. Thanks for watching. So long, everybody. See ya.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
75 years of service in high-tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High-tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray, and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained more people than any other bowling center in the city. We self-fund for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.